Today we're going to be shooting what has been dubbed the world's best shooting carry gun, and we're going to find out if that's true. On Sunday Gun Day. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today we have an interesting topic revolving around guns designed for concealed carry. When looking into firearms for concealed carry, there are obviously a lot of different factors to keep in mind when making a decision, from size and capacity to sights, build quality, and of course the shootability. If you are carrying a firearm for self-defense, you obviously want to be carrying what you shoot best. So today I have the Staccato C from STI in my hands, and we are going to take a closer look to see if this is actually what they claim, the world's best shooting carry gun. STI is most well known for their high-quality, full-size firearms that put a damper on the 1911 market ever since they released. We are of course talking about the 2011. They have now taken their 2011 technology and scaled it down a bit, bringing us this beautiful Staccato C. This is a single stack 9mm with 8-in-1 capacity, built on STI's new Recoil Master railed aluminum frame. On top you will find a nice fiber optic front post and a black serrated rear from Dawson Precision, and the entire gun is DLC coded because all black everything. The front and rear serrations function even better than they look, and since this thing is hand fit, the action is already as smooth as glass. The trigger comes out of the box at 3.5 pounds but is adjustable, and the safety selector is ambi for any left-handed shooters out there. The grip area is of course polymer, and it has some pretty mild texturing, but we will see if that is an issue once we get to the shooting. The Staccato C also came with 2 mags, a nice carrying bag, and even a holster, so this thing is ready to carry right out of the box. Now, my experience with STI guns is fairly limited because I've personally never owned one before. I've shot just about every model that they make over the years, but this will be my first more in-depth testing with one of their guns, thanks to my friends at Shooting Surplus. This gun is on loan to me from them, and they have also provided some ammo for today's testing, so a huge thank you to them for supporting the channel and making videos like this possible to bring to you guys. If you like what you see here and you want more information on where to pick one of these up, check out their website, and you can use my code TALONSCI at checkout for 5% off of any order. Now, I've had this thing in my hands for a few weeks now, and I've been dying to shoot it, so I have 2 mags loaded up. Let's go break this thing in a bit, and I will come back for my first mag impressions. Mags are pretty small, so let's go for one more. Alright guys, back for my first mag impression of the Staccato P. The first thing that comes to mind with this gun is just how precise the fitment is and how smooth the action moves. Typically I would talk about the ergonomics first, but after shooting it now, this thing just feels like glass, like 2 pieces of oiled glass sliding against each other. Racking this thing from the front of the slide, pulling it from the rear, and slingshotting it, it just feels so good. Now, since this gun is on the heavier side, the recoil impulse seemed pretty damn easy to manage. It's not every day that I shoot a 1911 or 2011 style gun, so I will have to get used to actuating the safety and stuff like that when drawing from concealment. But once I get used to that, I think everything is going to come pretty naturally, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to shoot this thing fairly quick. Now, I guess I will start from the top down with these sights, and since this gun is directed right at the concealed carry market, I would absolutely be okay with these sights. I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to a fiber optic front and a black serrated rear. Sometimes I shoot them really well and I do prefer them. Other times it's not so much. The lighting condition out here today is obviously very bright out there on the range, so this thing is picking up a ton of light. Here is an idea of what the sight picture is looking like. It's a little bit hard to tell on video, but that front post definitely fills up that rear notch very nicely. Like I said, once I start shooting this thing a little bit more, I think the target acquisition is going to be very quick because of not only the grip angle, but where those sights fall as soon as I push this thing out on the target. One other thing to note about the Dawson Precision sight set is that on this rear dovetail here, there's a little bit of a ramp, if you want to call it that. I could definitely see that being used to rack off of a belt, boot, table, holster, or anything in the area if you do need to manipulate this thing with one hand. Now moving down to the slide, I love the serrations on here, not only the way they look, but they are super functional. There's kind of like a few different depths to the recessed cuts in these serrations, but the most raised part of the serrations, both front and rear, they stick up pretty far, so they are deep, and I don't see any situation where this is going to be hard to rack. This also goes hand in hand with how smooth the Staccato P feels. Underneath, over the top, both front and rear, you can definitely get your hand on that thing and it's not going to be an issue. The DLC coating seems very nice across the slide, the top part of the frame, and then you get down into the grip where it turns into polymer. And we'll talk about that in a second. So moving down to the subframe area, you're working with about half of a full-size rail. You could definitely mount up pretty much any light that I can think of on this gun, and I think it's going to fit it pretty damn well. The controls are pretty straightforward for a 1911 or a 2011. The safety is ambidextrous, and it is very confidence inspiring. It's basically like flicking a light switch. You know if it is on or off. There's really no in between. So once I get around to drawing this thing, I think I will be able to draw and click that safety off with authority and know that it is ready to fire. The hammer is skeletonized, which is nice. I like being able to kind of squeeze that with my thumb and decock it if I ever need to. And then the slide stop lever is a little bit hard to get to with your thumb, but that is kind of typical on a gun of this style. What I would typically do with a reload is come up with my support hand, insert that mag, and then hit it with my support hand thumb, closing that slide. The one other thing that I noticed is that since this gun is fairly new, that mag button is a little sticky right from the start, but I'm sure the more that I shoot this thing, the more times I press it, it will be easier to drop out those mags. The magazines, by the way, are looking fairly standard, almost like a regular 1911 magazine. 8-in-1 rounds. Not sure if I'm a huge fan of that for a carry gun, but we will talk about that a little bit later. Now moving down to the grip portion of the frame, that is where you're getting a little bit of the weight saving here. If this thing was an all metal gun, completely metal from the slide all the way down to the grip, it would be much heavier. This thing is coming in at 25.6 ounces, so it is definitely not the lightest gun, but if you have to carry a 1911 or 2011, I think that this would definitely be a good option so far. Now the texturing on here is something that I am not quite sure if I'm a fan of yet. It is fairly warm out here, so my hands will probably get sweaty. I might actually purposely get them wet in a little bit to see if the texture on here is an issue at all. But for now it seems okay. It feels pretty good in my hand. I'm really trying to crush my hand up into that beaver tail to make sure that I'm actuating that grip safety. Now with my first mag impression, I think they have a good thing going here. I mean, obviously it's STI and you get what you pay for. One other thing that I do want to talk about is that bull barrel, but we will talk about that and the trigger once I put some more rounds down. This thing only came with 2 8-round magazines, so there's going to be a lot of downtime loading these up, but I'll try to put about 100-150 rounds down today, and then I will come back and give some more final thoughts. Now let's see what this thing can do. I'm going to take my time with it first. Trying to take my time with it, but that trigger makes me want to shoot it fast. This is going to be a little weird for me to get used to, but actually drawing, taking off a safety before firing. So we'll see how it goes. It'd be all right if I didn't miss my first shot. I don't do this very often, so this is something that I definitely need to work on if I were to ever carry a gun like this. Now this gun is obviously not made for shooting out to distances like this. I mean, it probably will be able to, but we're back here at about 40 yards. Hopefully you never have to use a concealed carry gun at 40 yards like this. Not too bad. Now let's bring it up to a more concealed carry type of distance, or a more realistic distance if you want to call it that. We're at about 15 yards now shooting onto paper. Let's take a look at that. So for some 115 grain FMJ out of a fairly small gun that is a little bit small for my hands, I'm alright with that. For a self-defense carry weapon, I think that's good enough to put the shots where they matter. All right, I just poured some water on my hands so they are dripping wet. I'm gonna draw from concealment like you would in any other situation and see if it affects anything. Not so sure about this grip yet. One more. All right, that wasn't the worst experience ever. I can still get a decent grip on here, but I would definitely like to see that texture a little bit more aggressive than it is. I think if my hands were actually like bloody or muddy or anything that could get in this texture and kind of stick in there, I think it would cause more of an issue. I don't have a reload. Let's see if we can do it back to back though. All right, I'm warming up to this thing. Let's see how shooting a little quicker goes with this thing, and hopefully I can land some follow-up shots. I'd say that's pretty good for 10 yards. All right guys, back for some of my final thoughts on the STI Staccato C. It did take a little while to warm up to this thing because I'm not used to shooting this type of platform very often, but when I do, it's definitely a treat. Does this thing live up to the name though? Is it the world's best shooting carry gun? I'll tell you one thing, it is definitely a pleasure to shoot. It's not very often that you really truly enjoy shooting a concealed carry gun. I don't want to lump everything into this, but for the most part, single stack, polymer frame, light guns that are designed for concealed carry are not the most fun guns to shoot. This, however, is definitely a gun that if I had in my collection, I would bring it out to the range pretty frequently to let people shoot it myself. The action alone on this thing is enough for me to just kind of have one of those guns there that sits on my desk and I get to rack and play with while I'm sitting there working. The fit and finish of this is great. It's exactly what I was expecting from STI. And I think if you are the type of person to carry a gun like this, then yeah, this might be the best shooting concealed carry gun on the market. That whole slogan and everything is obviously subjective to the person and a lot of different things, but STI obviously makes a great platform. Now before I go on any further about that, let's talk about first the bull barrel. This is a 3.9 inch bull barrel, and as you can see, it's got a lot of thickness to it. It's actually a little bit warm right now. Because of all the hand fit, very tight tolerances that STI works with, coupled with that barrel, it's obviously going to give you some great accuracy. Accuracy is obviously very important in a firearm that you are trusting with your life and your friends and family's lives. So STI obviously took all of their knowledge with building some very accurate race guns and put that into a concealed carry gun like this, and I think they did a great job. Now to close out, let's talk about the trigger real quick because this is something that is kind of interesting. Alright, one thing to note about this 2011 platform is that it is polymer from the subframe area down. You obviously have the slide and then the recoil master frame that it rides on, but then the trigger guard, the grip itself, everything on the internals, the flared magazine well, even this little back strap area here, and the trigger shoe, everything here is polymer or some type of plastic. That's good in some respect because it is obviously cutting down on the weight a lot, and you think that that might be a little bit of a compromise when it comes to the trigger, but it actually is not. I definitely like the look and feel of this trigger shoe. At first, I didn't even notice that it was polymer until I started like getting my hands on it a little bit more. When you put your finger on there, the take up is super short right to a very defined wall, and then you get that 3.5 pound break. The break feels awesome. Obviously, I wish some more polymer pistols felt like this, but then again, this isn't all polymer, so let's check out that reset. Slowly let out. Doesn't travel out very far until you get that reset, and of course, you're right on top of the wall again. Another very nice break. Now this is at a point right now that I probably would not adjust it at all. There is that little set screw in there where you can tighten that thing down. But even if I were to carry this, I do not think that I would be making any adjustments to that. You do have that ambidextrous safety on here, which you can actuate very easily. And with some more training manipulating that safety and actually getting used to the trigger on this thing, I think that you'd be running this without a problem. One other quick thing to mention is that grip there. When my hands were wet, I did notice having to grip down a little bit harder to keep that thing shooting a little bit flatter. There is a nice undercut to the trigger guard though, so my middle finger can get right up in there, and then my support hand rests right underneath this cutout. It does feel pretty good in my hand, however, I definitely shoot a more full-size gun better. The grip is nice in the fact that they still kept a flared magazine well in there, so reloads are fairly easy, and they also added this little bobtail here, which feels pretty good. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of it quite yet, but it does feel pretty nice, especially when this thing is holstered and up against my body. That grip texture isn't too aggressive that it's going to be bothering you at all, but at the same time, you might be compromising a little bit if your hands are sweaty or wet or anything else. Now, who is this gun for, especially given the price point? Right now, the Staccato C is coming in at about $14.95. So this is definitely on the higher end of the spectrum when it comes to a normal concealed carry firearm. To me, this is one of those guns that if I was the type of person who had to have a 1911 or 2011 platform, I was okay with the weight and the lower round capacity. If I had a lot of those limiting factors and I needed to purchase a gun, and this would definitely be towards the top of my list. Again, this is one of those platforms that I do not shoot very often, but I'm sure if I had a lot more trigger time behind this thing, I could become fairly proficient with it. The round count to me doesn't bother me all that much, but for the most part, if I am okay with a lower round count, I want that gun to be very small and very light. So to me, this is sort of a carry gun for the diehard STI fans out there. I'm definitely a fan of their guns. I'm glad that I got to spend some more time with this thing, and hopefully there will be more in the future. Actually, if you stick around to the end of the video, you might find out something pretty cool. So at that almost $1,500 price point, the Staccato C isn't necessarily for me, but I definitely see the market that they're going after. Now, if you guys have any questions on this gun, let me know in the comments down below. I will try to answer them as best as possible while I still have time with the Staccato. I am going to be sending it back to my friends at Shooting Surplus. I can't thank you guys enough for sponsoring this video, providing the ammo, and letting me shoot this awesome gun. Like I mentioned, you guys should go check them out, especially if you want to pick up a Staccato C. They got some good prices right now. And if you use my code TALENTSCI at checkout, you can save 5% off of any order. They got a lot of cool stuff there, so I really recommend going and checking them out. Now, are you guys ready for the secret? It's really not that much of a secret, but you will see what is coming in the next episode. So the Staccato C, it's great and all, but for my liking, it is a little bit too small. I would prefer more capacity. Love the overall aesthetics of it. It is a killer looking gun. So what would complement a Staccato C? How about a Staccato P host version? This thing I am super stoked to shoot, and you guys will have to stick around, click subscribe, and make sure you come back next week for Sunday Gun Day when I'm going to be testing out the STI Staccato P host. So there you guys go. You get a little insight on the channel for sticking around. Now that's all I got for today. Hopefully you guys are excited to see this thing because I'm stoked to shoot it, man. This thing is, ooh, it's so cool. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.